All right, so now I'm looking at practice problem number 2. So in practice problem 2, it says you're looking at the corporate bond market and they experienced an increase in default risk. So the idea here again is we're using that framework where you have corporate bonds in one market and U.S. Treasury bonds in the other market. And then you have a sort of a starting point where you have demand and supply, something like this in each market. So in this case, it's saying, suppose there's an increase in default risk relative for the corporate bonds relative to treasury bonds. So the idea is default risk is a bad thing for the bonds. It's an indication that there's a higher chance the issuer of the bonds won't actually make the promised bond payments. So what happens is if the default risk increases in the corporate bond market, investors are less interested in that type of bond. So what that means is you have a decrease in demand for the corporate bonds. So in terms of my graph, right, what I do is I take that existing demand curve, I have P here and Q here like usual. Decrease in demand would be a shift over here to the left. So I do something like this. Okay, so at every price, that demand curve moves to the left. After it moves to the left, we have a new price. That was my initial price. This is my second price, right? So I started up here at a market equilibrium price of P1. And now we're down here at a new equilibrium price of P2, where this original demand curve is sort of faded away. So in terms of my answer, right, it says that in case the demand for corporate bonds should decrease, so I'd write decrease for my answer there. And the equilibrium price of the corporate bonds will, so in this case I just noticed that it looks like if I go from P1 to P2, that's going to be a decrease in the equilibrium price, where this new demand curve, D2, now intersects that original supply curve S. Okay, so I say the equilibrium price will fall or decrease, something like that.